Joining us from Bethlehem is Reverend Dr. Mitri Raheb, the president of Dar al-Kalima and also the co-founder of Bright Stars of Bethlehem. Welcome, Dr. Raheb. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. Good to be with you.
We understand that 2 of our DAK students in the last 48 hours have been detained by the Israeli military. What can you tell us about Farouz, the DAK film major that was detained and since released?
Yeah, Farouz actually was detained on Sunday while she was protesting the Israeli military occupation and oppression that was happening in Jerusalem. And she was doing that actually in front of the headquarters of the Israeli military in Bethel near Ramallah. And Farouz, as you said, she is studying film, but her story is unique because actually she is the daughter of a Palestinian detainee. Her father was actually put into prison, into Israeli jail. He is a political prisoner 18 years ago. And he is still in prison because they convicted him for 20 years in jail. And so basically Farouz, when her father went to jail, she was like 2 years old. And since then, she grew up actually away from her father, that we hope will be released hopefully in 2 years. So this is why I think Farouz is very tentative to injustice, and the occupation is not a theory for her. I mean, she lived that through her whole life. I mean, growing up away from her father was not something easy for a young girl.
Again, heartbreaking. We will be praying for her and her family, and as she navigates through the, I'm sure, what will be a complicated situation after the arrest. I'm glad that she's been released at this point. Okay, my next question to you was going to be, can you tell us about Anas, who's the music major? And we were going to ask you to share about him. We were going to show some pictures, but I'm thrilled to say that Anas has been released, and he is here with us today. So welcome, Anas.
Hi.
Welcome.
Yeah, Anas was released just like 3 hours ago, and so this is like his first interview after being released. I'm going to ask him in Arabic, and he's going to answer in Arabic, and I will translate what he's saying. أنس، تحكي لنا شوي شو صار معك بهاليومين الأخرانيات؟
مرحبا. بداية طبعا أنا كنت نازل أنا وأصحاب لي بدنا نصلي بالمسجد الأقصى. كانوا مسكرين البوابات وبيمنعوا أي حدا يدخل.
هذا أنو يوم؟
كان امبارح،
يوم الاثنين.
امبارح على الساعة 12 تقريبا. كانوا مسكرين البوابات، ما بيمنعوا أي حدا يدخل. طبعا حكوا الشباب في طريق انه بنقدر ننط من احد بيوت البلده القديمه للسور تاع المسجد الاقصى، وبتدخلوا على الاقصى بالطريق على ساحات المسجد الاقصى. طلعوا عدد من الشباب، طبعا نطوا عن ظهر البنايه هاي. في شباب منهم نزلوا نطوا على ساحه المسجد الاقصى. طبعا كان في جنود للاحتلال، ما كنا نعرف انه في جنود الاحتلال بيستنوا فيهم، تم اعتقالهم. فاحنا جربنا نرجع.
وهدول كانوا الجنود يستنوا جوا ساحة الأقصى ولا براها؟
يستنوا جوا ساحة المسجد الأقصى عشان عرفوا إنه في شباب راح ينطوا عن طريق السور. فأنا رجعت أنا واللي معي، حاصرونا، أجوا من الجهة الثانية. اللي معي تم اعتقالهم. أنا حاولت إني أهرب، طخوني برجلي، طبعا رصاص مطاط. كنت على سطح، دبيت على السطح اللي تحت، تقريبا هو فرق بيكون طابق واحد، وهجموا علي، ضربوني ورشوا علي الغاز وتمت التوليد.
خليني أترجم دقيقة على أساس ما أنساش إشي. Anas is saying on yesterday around 12 noon, he was with his friends going to pray at Al-Aqsa Mosque in the old city of Jerusalem. That was like the prayer time. But then they saw that the Israeli soldiers have blocked the entrance to Al-Aqsa Mosque, not allowing anyone to enter. And so they tried to find another way to get in, maybe through climbing over the wall and then to jump into the Al-Aqsa compound. What they were not aware of, that the Israeli soldiers actually were waiting for them inside Al-Aqsa compound. And so they detained some of his friends. He and few others tried to get away, to run away, but then they fired at him with rubber bullet. He was injured, and he actually fell from like 10 foot from the walls of Al-Aqsa to the ground. And this is when the Israeli soldiers came and they threw gas on him and detained him. كمل أنس.
طبعا بعد ما تعرضت للضرب والهيك حطوا الكلبشات في ايدي، بعد ما طبعا اعتقلوني بطريقه انه ضربوني ورشوا علي الغاز. بحكي له بالطريقه انه باي تهمه انت ماخذني على الحبس، يعني باي تهمه؟ بحكي لي انت بتسوي اعمال تخريبيه. حكيت له اي اعمال تخريبيه؟ انا بدي ادخل اصلي بالمسجد الاقصى، انت باي حق بتمنعني وتسكر البوابات؟ ما بدك اياني انط عن سور مسجد الاقصى؟ افتح البوابات، اسمح لي بالدخول. انا مش جاي اسوي اعمال تخريبيه، انا جاي اصلي. طبعا كانت كل جمله بحكيها اتعرض للضرب ازود، ويشدوا الكلبشات على ايدي ازود. داخل المركز تم ضربي كمان مره، وحكى لي بدك تطلع، بدك توقع ورقه انك انت ما انضربت وما تعرضت لاي نوع من انواع العنف. وطبعا اجوا اهلي، وتم دفع غرامه ماليه بقيمه 5000 شيكل، وابوي وقع على ورقه تعهد اني ما اقوم باعمال تخريبيه حسب ما هم بيحكوا عنها. لا نص اي اعمال تخريبيه، هذا العمل ما بيشمل اي عمل تخريبي، بالعكس انا راح اصلي بالمسجد الاقصى. في الليل.
Anas is saying after detaining him, they hit him a lot. On the way to the prison, he asked the captain, on what charge are you actually detaining me? They told him, you are a terrorist. He said, what is terrorism? I was going to pray to Al-Aqsa Mosque. It is, the time of Ramadan. It's the time for prayer. We weren't doing anything. He continued repeating, you are terrorists. And they hit him a lot in the prison. And then his family with a lawyer came and they were able to bail him after paying 5,000 shekel. So that is Anas' story. تحب تضيف كمان إشي أنس؟
لا، بتمنى إنه الناس تشوف قديش الاحتلال ظالم، وقديش بيمس فينا في وطننا وحتى في ديننا، وقديش عندنا الحرية محصورة جدا داخل البلد. والاحتلال بيبين للناس بطريقة أو بأخرى أنه هو منبع للسلام، منبع للاحترام، وهو العكس كذلك. هو يعني بيعامل الشعب الفلسطيني بطريقة جدا عنيفة، جدا عدوانة، يعني بعنف وبطريقة عدوانية جدا وبس.
تمام، شكرا أنس. Yeah, Anas is saying that his message to us is for the people in the world really to understand and see the injustice that is happening in Palestine, how we are actually robbed from our freedom, the freedom to have our own country, the freedom to exercise our religion, the freedom of any human beings that is necessarily actually for us to live, and to understand that Israel pretend always that they are the peace-loving and the Palestinians are the terrorists, while actually the opposite is the case. أنس شكرا كتير. أنا بعرف أنت بتدرس عندنا موسيقى وبعرف صوتك حلو، ودائما أنت إيش في عندنا مناسبات بتأثرش دائما بتغني. فاليوم بدنا نسمع صوتك لأصدقائنا اللي معنا من كل العالم، وقلنا بس شو بدك تغني لنا إياه.
طبعا أنا بدي أغني موال لفنان فلسطيني اسمه أبو عرب. موال يا توتة الدار.
إيش اسمه؟
يا توتة الدار.
Okay. So Anas is a voice major, and whenever we have an event at Dar al-Kalima University, he always there actually performing. And maybe some of you who came and visited our university, you could see him often, you know, on the music floor with his guitar singing. Tonight he's going to do a very short piece. It's an Oriental piece, so he will do it without the guitar, just voice. It is the words were and the music written by a Palestinian artist, and the theme is it's about the tree at home. It's a fig tree, the fig tree at home. So we will listen now to Anas. Anas, تفضل.
يا توتة الدار من صبرك عالزمان جار، خلي جناك يحمم عالغاصب الغدار. يا ويلي يا توتة الدار، حلفتك بفرقتنا، خلي جناك يحمم عالغاصب الغدار. يابا والله لزراعك بالدار، يا عود اللوز الخضر، واروي هالارض بدمي، تتناور فيها وتكبر تكبر. يا ويلي.
يعطيك العافية. شكرا. You have to listen to him live, not via the internet, and the words are actually very powerful, very moving. It's addressing the fig tree at home to be resilient in front of the oppression that is coming, and to keep giving good fruit. Anas, shukran.
Thank you.
Wow. Wow, what an incredible example of resilience and hope unlocked in the face of unimaginable oppression. Thank you, Anas. Thank you so much for joining us. And I know you're going to stick around for questions. So at this point, one thing I do before Anas leaves at this point, Mitri, can you explain to the audience about something we spoke about earlier and you talked to Anas about regarding smiling? Something that I've noticed as I've been watching the news are many young people who are being detained, Palestinians, are actually smiling with radiant smiles. Can you speak about that and what Anas had said to you about that earlier?
Yeah, I asked Anas this question earlier because in the picture he was smiling while he was detained, and I said, why? And his answer was, this is as a sign of resistance and resilience, because he doesn't want the Israeli soldiers to feel that they have broken him, but that he's standing there tall, actually, to make them feel actually ashamed. So that was his answer.
Thank you. Thank you again for joining us. And we'll get back to you in a few moments with questions as well. For now, I think it's important to, in order for the audience to understand some context, I've collected questions from some key stakeholders around the country. And Mitri, I'm hoping that you can shed some light on some things regarding the context. So let's start with the first question. What has happened in the last few weeks in East Jerusalem, Sheikh Jarrah, Silwan, Damascus Gate, and Al-Aqsa Mosque complex? Can you just give us a summary of what's been happening?
Yeah, I think it is really important for our friends in the US to understand what is happening in Palestine, because often you hear it's an Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's really not a conflict. What we experience here is what we call settler colonialism. And settler colonialism actually is distinguished from classical colonialism because the settler colonialists, they come to a country, occupy it permanently, exercising state sovereignty and juridical control over the indigenous people, while ultimately aiming to eliminate the native people. So that is what is really happening. So the native in settler colonialism, they become externals, aliens at home, while the settlers are cast as natives. Here, Israel actually used the Bible. To achieve this, settler colonialism developed very different mechanisms, ideological and biblical construct, and social narratives. So the indigenous land is described as empty or barren land, just waiting to be discovered, thus becoming the private property of the settler. The native people are depicted in racist construct as savage, violent terrorists. We heard it from Anas, while the settlers are portrayed as the civilized and brave pioneers. To defend the settler property from the savage, a police state is created and is granted extraordinary power over the native people, including power over their civil affairs. And so this is actually what is happening here. So it's not a conflict. It's really settler colonialism. And so what happened in the last weeks in Sheikh Jarrah is a Palestinian neighborhood in Jerusalem. It was named after the medical doctor who was treating Saladin in the 13th century. And so there is this Palestinian neighborhood, and Jewish settlers, they wanted to evict all the families from that neighborhood to occupy their homes and to kick them out. And this has actually started this whole last unrest. Now, this is not something new. Israel has been doing this for the last 100 years through different means, sometimes through wars and displacement like 1948, sometimes through laws, Israeli colonial laws that allow land to be only owned by Jewish Israeli, not by Palestinians. And so 90% of the land in Israel is not allowed to be sold to any Palestinian. That's part of the racist structure of a Jewish state. And sometimes through economic pressures, when they know some people are in dire need, they come and offer lots of money to buy their land. So it's different tactics, but one goal is to eliminate the native people, take their land, and kick them out in different ways. so this is really what the background. That is like the bigger picture that we need to understand, because in the media, they often talk about conflict. Conflict is between two parties, but this is really not a conflict between two parties. It's a one party that has all the power and all the international support against really a civilian population that are native in their land, and this is the Palestinians.
That's really enlightening. Thank you so much for that. I'm glad we're taping this because I'll be watching this again. I've learned a lot from just that one answer. So thank you. I think our audience has too. All right, for the next question, each year there are tensions around the anniversary of the Nakba, the Israeli Jerusalem Day. And this year we are in the middle of Ramadan. How do these events factor in?
Actually, they do factor very much. Because on the one hand, you are right, yesterday was the day when Israel and the settlers, Jewish settlers, they were celebrating the unification of Jerusalem. Unification of Jerusalem, meaning actually the occupation of Jerusalem in 1967. And they were planning to storm Al-Aqsa Mosque. While the Muslim Palestinians were celebrating their Ramadan, and one day earlier, it was the most holiest night in Ramadan, when the Muslim believe that is the night when the Quran was revealed to Prophet Muhammad. So you had basically here Palestinians celebrating their fasting month at Al-Aqsa Mosque, and Al-Aqsa is the third holiest place in Islam. And then you have the settlers who were actually celebrating the occupation of the city, which they call unification, and they wanted to storm the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, the thing is, actually what happened on Monday and yesterday proved that the city is very much divided. Jerusalem is, I mean, what this unrest proved is that the city is totally divided between two people. The one group, they have all the power and they have the supremacy, and the others actually, they don't have even access to their holy site. And the other thing actually, what this proved is that, you know, whenever you come to attack people in their religious feelings, they will react and they will not let that happen. So religious feelings are actually very, very powerful.
Thank you, Mitri. American credibility is very low right now in Palestine. The U.S. government has issued words of counseling, of restraint, of calm. The words feel shallow. What could or should Americans be asking of our government?
Yeah, I mean, you know, during the Trump administration and when President Trump recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, actually neglecting that 1/3 of the people living in Jerusalem are Palestinians with no right. They are considered, you know, resident aliens. Although, you know, their fathers, grandfathers, their families' roots have been there for centuries, they are considered resident aliens. And so they can actually, they can lose this status very, very easily. And the other thing is that when President Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem against international law, I mean, he created, actually, instead of helping to solve the issue, he complicated the issue. And actually, for us Palestinians, this was blow in our face. So, so this is the Trump administration. The Biden administration, they did not agree with Trump, but they are busy with other things, you know, with the pandemic, with China, with Russia, with unemployment, etc. And so Palestine is not really a priority right now for the Biden administration. My hope is that what happened in the last week in Jerusalem will make the Biden administration realize that they need to get involved and they need to straighten really what was the wrong that was done before. So that is my hope, my hope is that for the international community to stop managing the conflict rather than solving it. You know, we really need peace, but we really need a just peace. And, you know, this settler colonialism cannot continue, not only because it hurts us Palestinians, but also because actually it destroys the whole Israeli state. And yeah.
Thank you, Mitri. What can we specifically as Americans ask of our government? Specifically, what should we ask? What should we demand?
I think there are many things. One is, you know, the U.S. gives Israel every year $3.8 billion without any strings. And there are today many members of Congress who are asking the administration to put strings, because, I mean, some of these military equipment are used on a daily basis against the Palestinians, against international law, against the human chart. And so this is something you can demand. You can demand for the Biden administration to get really involved to solve the conflict. You can ask them to resume their support for the refugees, for the infrastructure, for the medical hospitalization, for education, etc.
Thank you. Let's be clear, $3.8 billion is what you said. 3.8 billion. Thank you. Now, the eruption of violence and 2 innocent students from Dar al-Khalima have been detained, obviously, Farouz and Anas. What is the situation for the other students and faculty? How are they being affected by this recent crisis?
I mean, you know, very much so, because, I mean, what was happening in the last days actually mesmerized everyone, you know, to keep watching the news to see what's happening, to ask if their friends are okay. Movement was made very difficult, and people were afraid that, you know, this might escalate to something which is much larger. Our students so have been affected. Right now we are on holidays, so thanks God, because otherwise many students could not have maybe reached the university, the campus. But I want to tell you the story of another student, Saleh, from the film program. Saleh actually took it on his own to go to Al-Aqsa Mosque with his camera and to document day and night what was happening there, and to have a live stream 24/7 from inside Al-Aqsa Mosque, showing actually how the Israeli military went into the mosque, inside the mosque, how they actually tear gassed the people inside the mosque, and how also the young people were actually resilient, protesting. And so it's amazing that a student like that was able to do such an important work. If you see him, he has his own YouTube channel with over 100.
And we have access to that, so we'll post that on our Bright Stars.
Yeah, with over
talk about creative resistance. I mean, that is using his talent, his art, to resist in a creative way. That's an amazing story. That's
and actually, Chris, you can see he has over 170,000 followers. So I mean,
okay. We will absolutely forward that or post that on our site as well, so everyone can see. Thank you for that. Okay, how do you teach about justice and hope and support your students in such a moment?
Yeah, actually, you know, for us, we have certain values that we think are very important for our students and for our philosophy. The first is critical thinking.
Yes.
Critical thinking is very important, especially at times like this. You know, and I was today listening to CNN and to the German news, and I felt that actually the Palestinians were the one actually attacking Israel and not the other way around. So critical thinking is important because we need our students to think critically of everything they hear, they see, they read. We need critical eyes. So this is one. Secondly, we train them actually to have compassion with the oppressed, irrespective who they are. For example, this is why when I look at many of the films that our students are doing, many of the films, they talk about gender issues because they feel they have to raise the voices of the women and the oppression they feel in a patriarchal society. But also about the socially vulnerable groups of people. Many of the films depict that. So for us, that compassion for those people who are oppressed is really important, irrespective who they are and where they live anywhere in the world. And the third thing that is important for us is creative resistance. This is something we teach because we want our young people to resist, not through, you know, arms and so on, because we are anyhow the powerless compared with the Israeli. Israel is the 8th largest military country in the world. You know, we are defenseless people, so we need to be to think creatively and to use, you know, film, song, dance, theater to tell our story in a creative way. And again, Saleh is a great example, you know, using his camera to transmit what is happening there, so to show the whole world. I mean, what a powerful medium. And so that is to use art as a tool for advocacy in our struggle. I think this is something that for us is important.
I see that. So creative thinking, compassion, and creative resistance. These are all the tools for encouraging and empowering world changers. And I see that in the students at Dar al-Klima, and that's hopeful. That's definitely unlocking hope as well. Okay, what is the critical message right now from Palestine that all of us must help in carrying? The message to the world.
Yeah, the message to the world is that really the context here is a context of settler colonialism. And Palestinians deserve to have their freedom. For the last 100 years, this country did not experience peace and justice because of this settler colonialism. That need to stop. Maybe that settler colonialism, you know, I mean, happened in many different countries, but it's happening now in Palestine, and that needs to stop.
Thank you. All right, we touched upon this just a tiny bit before, but the question is, are there policy actions that President Biden, members of the cabinet, or U.S. legislators can take that would make a real difference in the dynamics of the violence in and around Jerusalem and Bethlehem?
Yeah, I think it's important for the Biden administration to reopen the American consulate in Jerusalem that was closed under the Trump administration, and to upgrade that to an embassy for the Palestinians. I think this will make it's a very small step, but it will change the whole dynamic of the conflict, because it shows that the US is really serious about having Jerusalem a city for two peoples and three religions that can live together.
Thank you. Okay, another interesting question is, are there pro bono legal services through the Palestinian Authority or humanitarian nonprofit organizations that can assist the DAK students and others who have been detained?
There are few available, not always, but there are few that are available.
Okay, and hopefully our friends who have been detained and released will be okay moving forward. I know they're gonna have a rough road if there's any actions taken against them. Okay, we are going to move on to the question and answer portion of this. This has been so informative. Thank you so much. I do believe we've been getting some questions in, and we're gonna look at those right now. What preceded the arrest of Firuz? Why was Firuz arrested? And I realize at times there's really no rhyme or reason why people are being arrested, or not for valid reasons. But do you have any a little bit more of her story?
I mean, because she was protesting with other friends, demonstrating in front of the Israeli military compound. That is actually the headquarters of all the occupational forces and Israeli military forces throughout the West Bank. And they didn't like that, and so they attacked the protesters.
Thank you. We're going to bring Anas back in. And do we have any other questions? Do we have any questions for him? Let's see. One viewer asked the question, how can we help bail out other students or help other students get released that have been arrested?
I think, I mean, if legal actions are necessary, we will be ready to do that, and you can definitely help with that, and also, help with students whose family maybe cannot afford actually to pay the amounts that Anas and others had to pay.
Thank you. I have a question about the numbers of people who have been injured and killed in the last few days. Do you have any update on that?
I don't have the latest. I know that in Gaza over 30 people were killed. In the West Bank, hundreds of people were injured and detained. But I don't have actually the latest. Maybe Anas knows. Anas, تعرف كم من واحد اتصاوب مثلا في القدس في هالايامات الماضيه؟ عندك فكره؟
يعني آخر عدد أنا سمعته تقريبا كان 270 شخص، بس لسه عم بيزيدوا، يعني كل يوم إصابات جديدة، وفي منهم إصابات خطيرة، المطاط بالرأس بتكون، في منهم وضعهم مش منيح بالمرة، في إشي بالعين يعني، وفي من كل هالإصابات.
So he's saying the latest number he heard about people injured in Jerusalem was 270, but the number keep climbing, and many are in serious condition because they were hit with rubber bullets in their eyes or.
Thank you. A question for Anas. How are you? You were injured by these bullets, and I'm so sorry. How are you feeling after that? Are you healing?
أنس بتقول إنه كيف هلا أنت شاعر، يعني في عندك أوجاع، في عندك إشي؟
طبعا أنا هسه رجلي ما بقدر أمشي عليها، أنا لافها لفوا لي إياها بالمستشفى. أنا غير الإصابات اللي بجسمي طبعا من الضرب في البواريد، ولسه حاسس بحركة بوجهي من رش الغاز كمان.
I mean, he's still, because he was shot at his leg with rubber bullets, so his leg is still actually in bandage, but also all over his body from them hitting him with their, so on all over his body he has I'm not sure what the English word for that.
Bruises, maybe
Yeah.
bruises.
Bruises.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm so sorry. So sorry for that.
هي الوجع الأكبر طبعا بالرجل من طخ رصاص المطاط، لأنه كانت المسافة قريبة، ما طخنيها من بعيد، طخها من مسافة قريبة جدا علي.
يعني قديش المسافة كانت؟
تقريبا 15 متر.
What hurts most is his leg, because he was shot with this rubber bullet from a very short,
close range. Yeah,
exactly. Only like 50 foot away the soldier was. So
I'm so sorry. You know, one of our board members said to you, Anas, Jeanette Cool, she said, Anas, your voice is the world. She loves your beautiful voice. So if you can share that with him, Dr. Raheb, tell him what our board member said.
في صديقة إلنا بتقول هو جوزها موسيقي فلسطيني، وهي بتفهم كتير في الموسيقى، فبتقول صوتك بجنن.
Thank you.
Last question for Anas. How does he find rest and renewal during this time of trauma and constant worry and this crisis? How does he feed his soul and his body and his mind? How does he rest?
كيف أنت أنس هلا بتلاقي الراحة؟ كيف أنت بتقدر تعود ترجع قواك الجسدية بس كمان نفسياتك وهيك؟ شو ممكن تعمل حتى تسترجع عافيتك كاملة؟
يعني صراحة العافية والنفسية صعب ترجع، يعني طول ما هو كمان في ناس تحت القصف في غزة، احنا كمان نشعر معاهم غير اللي بيصير عندنا في القدس. في ناس بدها تطلع جوا بيوتها، يعني أهل الشيخ جراح إذا راحوا منهم بيوت النفسية بتضلها محطمة، لأنه هذا الإشي إذا صار معهم ممكن يصير بعد فترة معانا، يمكن يطلعونا إحنا من بيوتنا كمان. من ناحية استرجاع القوة الجسدية إن شاء الله إنه بعد راحة عن طريق الرياضة أنا برجع القوة الجسدية.
والموسيقى فكرك بتساعدك شوي؟
الموسيقى أكيد، الموسيقى بشكل يومي، الغنى والعزف هاي إشي أساسي بالجسد بالنفسية بكل شيء.
Anas is saying that the thing is not his own physical problems, etc. But when he thinks of the people in Gaza, when he thinks of the people in Sheikh Jarrah, I mean, all of this actually doesn't help people really, to come to terms with what's happening. Still, for him, he hopes that sport will help him regain his physical, strength, and music will help him regain his actually psychological strength.
I thought maybe the singing is a blessing and helps him to flourish. I kind of thought the music would do that. So another question, this is the last question. One of the viewers asked, how can we donate? And the mission of Bright Stars of Bethlehem is to unlock hope for the next generation of creative leaders in Palestine, like Anas, like Farouz, like Ismail, who painted this beautiful painting. And Tiffany has put the link for donation for Bright Stars of Bethlehem into the comment section. So you can, if you'd like to stand with us and support and help these incredible leaders to flourish, you can donate to Bright Stars of Bethlehem, and we'll make sure that that money goes to help the flourishing of these incredible, resilient, beautiful young people who are the next generation of leaders in Palestine. I want to thank you, Anas, for spending time with us today. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And Reverend Raheb, again, you're a world changer, and we just are so blessed by your leadership. Thank you so much for bringing these stories into our computers, so that here, over 6,000 miles away, we can learn about what's happening there, and hopefully stand together with you against oppression, against injustice. We want to, I'd like to leave you all with this hopeful one last hopeful image. And that is, we're gonna put this up on the screen. Last night, I reached out to my friend Ismail. Ismail is the painter at Dar al-Klima who painted this beautiful painting. And I said, "Are you safe, Ismail? Is your family safe?" Ismail lives in Gaza. And he wrote back to me and he said, "The bombings are happening. It's very terrifying." And he said, and then he sent me this picture, and I believe he was on his roof. So he was on his roof at the moment that the bombings started happening in Gaza. And he was making this beautiful creation when he looked up and saw the bombings. So to me, this image right here is this is just a perfect example of hope unlocked, of this young man who is there in Gaza amidst all of this trauma, and he is doing his art. He is doing creative resistance amidst the actual bombing. So wanted to leave you with that image, and I wanted to thank all of you who joined us today. Thank you for standing with us. Thank you for your support. Thank you for unlocking hope, and please continue to support Bright Stars of Bethlehem, and please join us in praying for our friends in Palestine. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Take care.